My psychotherapist's wife is having an affair with a client. Hello, I'm 44 years old, have been married to my wife, 46 years old, for 22 years, and we have three children, 11, 15, and 20 años. In 2022, I asked for a divorce and moved out of our home, but I never followed through with the paperwork. Instead, we started dating again for the past year and a half, trying to rebuild our relationship. Things were going well until a few months ago when she started growing distant. She's a psychotherapist specializing in DBT, dialectical behavior therapy, and told me she was overwhelmed with high needs clients. I took her at her word. That is, until one night when I saw her parked outside a random apartment complex at 3 a.m. She was borrowing my Tesla at the time, and I noticed her location through the car's tracking widget. When I confronted her, she claimed she was just visiting a friend, though this was extremely out of character for her. Red flags went up immediately. I pressed for details, and she eventually told me it was a new friend from work. They were supposed to meet earlier, but plans got mixed up, and they ended up hanging out late. In our marriage, we've always allowed close friendships with the opposite sex, but we never had an open relationship. Still, something felt very off. She was evasive when I asked more questions, but after a week, she finally gave me his name. She admitted the situation looked bad, agreed it was inappropriate, and said she wouldn't see him outside of work anymore. That was in early May 2024. Fast forward a few weeks to early June, and I discovered she had gone back to his place, staying until 6 a.m. When I confronted her again, she insisted he was just a friend, claiming she had too much to drink and fell asleep on his couch. I challenged her, and instead of giving me real answers, she said she needed space and asked me to leave her alone for a week. I wasn't convinced. During that week, I did some digging and found the guy's Instagram, phone number, and address. I reached out thinking that if he was truly just a friend, he wouldn't want things to be misconstrued. His response? He called me a little bit way and told me to go away. That reaction only confirmed my suspicions. So I decided to visit his apartment to talk face to face. When he came downstairs, he got right in my face, repeating the same insults and cursing me out. I kept my cool and calmly asked what was going on with my wife. He refused to answer and eventually called the police. But after getting off the phone, he shoved me to the ground. Assault? I had no interest in escalating things, so I left. I told my wife that I knew something was going on based on his reaction. That's when she finally admitted to a light affair, claiming it wasn't physical, just some innocent meme sharing and fun conversations. I was devastated, but she insisted I was overreacting and blowing things out of proportion. The aftermath, over the next couple of months, we continued talking, trying to figure out if our relationship could be saved. We went to music festivals, spent time together, and were frequently intimate. It almost felt like we were rebuilding something. Then in August, she bought her own Tesla. While I was helping her set up her account, she suddenly went silent when she realized I could see her car's location, just like she could see mine. I told her I had nothing to hide, but she insisted on separate accounts. Another red flag. The very next night, I drove by his apartment. Sure enough, her car was parked right outside. I texted both of them, asking her to come out and talk. She refused. I went home to wait for her. While I was there, I had a strange feeling and decided to check her room. I'm not proud of this next part, but I found a journal sitting out on her work table. I took it and read it. That's when I discovered the truth. The guy she was seeing wasn't just some random friend. He was one of her DBT clients, a man with BPD, borderline personality disorder. Her journal detailed therapy sessions lasting 4, 5, even 6 hours. She wrote about inappropriate physical contact, kissing, dry humping, and discussions about sexual topics. She described their deep emotional connection, fantasizing about a life with him while also wrestling with guilt and shame. She knew she was risking everything to be with him, and yet she couldn't stop. When she got home, I confronted her. She broke down, begging me not to report her to the Board of Behavioral Health. I left around 2 a.m. and immediately scheduled a session with my own therapist that morning to process everything. Turns out all therapists are mandatory reporters when it comes to ethical breaches. My therapist reported her. The investigation. An investigation was launched, and I was contacted by the Attorney General's office to give a sworn statement. I kept my testimony vague. I didn't want to be vindictive, so I told them I wouldn't provide photos of her. She shit hit the fan last night. So 3 weeks ago, I broke up with my girlfriend due to cheating multiple times, hiding messages, sending nudes to multiple men. What a waste of 3 years. Anyway, she called me last night, and because we are amicable, I answered. While I was on the phone, I asked her if any of her friends knew about all the shit she had done to me over the years. She mentioned one of her girlfriends who I have also known for many years and worked with and considered a friend. So after I called the friend to just get some clarity on maybe why all this happened over the years, because I never got any closure from my ex. This girlfriend was really sweet and nice to me, gave me some good advice, and seemed to genuinely care. After the call, she wanted to call my ex to check in on her. I said maybe wait until after her therapy session in a few days to see how she's doing. She was happy to wait. After this phone call, I called my ex back to ask her something, and within 1 minute, her girlfriend was calling multiple times. Eventually, she answered. This girlfriend, who I thought I could trust, goes on a massive rampage to my ex, telling her how she thinks I have her phone tapped. The girlfriend called multiple other people to spill all this bullshit. My ex then got multiple people calling her, had people going over to her house because they were worried she was in trouble or being kept hostage. This girlfriend absolutely exaggerated this entire phone call, made my ex go through all her apps, change all her passwords, made my ex call on a separate phone because she thought it was bugged. The only thing I said on the phone that could have warranted this behavior is because I said I had screenshots of her cheating and talking to guys. Because at one point when I caught her cheating, she wanted to give me her login to her socials to prove herself. So I had access to whatever I wanted with her permission. This friend of hers decided to create so much drama. You'd think she would have legitimately felt sorry for me knowing what my ex did to me all these years. Instead, made it upon herself to make me out like a monster, controlling and paranoid freak. My ex had friends paranoid that her phone was tapped, and I had listened to their private conversations. The point of this post: never trust anyone outside of your relationship. Shit can blow up unexpectedly.
My fiance cheated on me on my birthday. We have a 4-month-old baby. On my 23rd birthday, February 8th, my boyfriend surprised me with a birthday party with all of our friends, a bartender, my favorite cake, a bunch of decorations. It was so sweet and he was so thoughtful. That night he got me a table and bottle service at a club down the street. Everyone was drinking and I had a good time. I wanted to leave early because I was getting too drunk, so he took me home. I threw up and blacked out, so I don't remember anything. I woke up the next morning, my phone was missing, and he was gone. He came home about an hour after I woke up and said he was checking in on me. I asked him where he was, and he told me he slept at the hotel where he works because he had to work at 7 a.m. I thought nothing of it and continued to have a terrible hangover. Fast forward to yesterday, one of my best friends, which happens to be my fiance's best friend's girlfriend, texted me and said she needed to talk to me. I went over after work, and what she told me was devastating. She is a D1 athlete on a dive team, and one of her teammates said that my fiance saw her in the club that night and called her 11 times. She finally answered because she never had his number saved and asked why he was calling her. He said he wanted to get her an Uber home to make sure she was safe, and she said no, she was fine. After he was persistent about it, she finally said yes and sent her address so the Uber could drop her off. The Uber started going the opposite direction of her house, and she texted him, asking him where it was taking her. He said it was taking her to our house. He said he needed help cleaning up a glass he broke. She said she was so confused and asked why I couldn't help. He responded with, "She's passed out and threw up." He then told her she couldn't come inside because we have cameras and I would see. He tried to kiss her multiple times and she swerved out of the way. She told him to take her home and they got in his car. She said he took her to the hotel instead and said he wanted to talk to her. He offered to be her sugar daddy and pay for anything she wanted. He then proceeded to put his fingers on her lips and say, "I want to test your gag reflex." He also said he wanted to have sex with her. She sent me all the texts and screenshots proving they were together and that he Ubered her to the house. I'm so in shock and confused.